No, it's no problem for me, but you have to start. Yes, now
Sorry?
it started. Okay. No, it's no problem for me. You can record.
Okay, Mr. Osman, let's record this class, please. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Recording.
All right. So the first thing we are going to talk about is the interview process. Now, because our goal is basically KSA, Saudi Arabia, right? So we are going to focus on the strategies, the situations that they support or they allow, or the things they kind of plan in their interviews. They are very, very, very different from interviews that we have in Pakistan, maybe outside Pakistan and other countries, okay? So the interview sessions are very different. Then we're going to talk about pre-interview preparation, which is very generalized, things we might already know, but things we should be careful of. Then in interview behavior, knowing what to do after the interview, and talking about confidence and like common mistakes that we should not do. So first of all, especially most of us here are educators in some form. Like some of us are like primary teachers, some are elementary, some are secondary, some are higher secondary, some are maybe even after high school, higher education. So things that people are looking for is professionalism, okay? And they're looking for communication skills in us. Communication skill does not mean that you should be able to talk. It just means that you should know the things that are appropriate, how you should say your introduction, how you should start a class, how you should end a class, how should you talk to the students, how you should talk to people that are in administration staff. So these things they are looking for. Then obviously relevant qualifications and experience. This is very important because some of us, we are multi-talented, right? So we are like, okay, our qualification, for example, is in English, my example, but I want to teach another subject. So that can be a bit of a problem if you don't have the relevant qualification or if you don't have the relevant experience most of the times. Then something that they are looking for, because now all the schools are either following international curriculums that are like, or curriculums that are not national level, something that talks about problem solving, something that talks about being able to adapt into technology, okay? Then obviously, because it's a completely different country, so you need to be able to respect their culture. It's very good if you take into consideration their culture. And I have seen personally that when we appreciate their culture and when we don't seem desperate to get the job and we're like genuinely like we seem like we want to come to their country, maybe to see culture for whatever religious reasons or other reasons, because of safety, economy, or any other reasons, they're really excited to get us on board. And obviously, last, confidence. Confidence is the key. And you know the famous saying, like, fake it till you make it. You need to be confident. Sometimes during the interview processes, sometimes during after interview processes, there is a question here and there. Sometimes we hear something. Sometimes when we are doing the video calls, we get nervous, but it's okay. You just need to act like you know everything, okay? And obviously being honest. If you don't know something, say it that I don't know, but you will look into it. So those are a few things that we need to keep in mind, okay? So number one, you need to do is you should know what your qualifications are and what the other person is looking for, what the school is looking for. For example, if they want to hire you for an IGCSE role, any role like primary, secondary, elementary, whatever, but it is for IGCSE. So make sure that your qualifications, they are falling into IGCSE situation, that you are ticking every single thing that is required for IGCSE. A lot of times, long experience does not matter, okay? What matters is that you know your course. So for example, if they're hiring someone for science or if they're hiring someone for English, I am an English teacher, so I will only mostly specifically talk about my experience and my examples, okay? So if they're looking for an English teacher in an IGCSE curriculum, so they are going to expect you to know everything about IGCSE. They are going to expect you to know everything about the course. You should know how the exams take place, where the exams take place, what is the grade that you have been working on. For example, like how much did your students improve? Talk about it. Even if it's 1 year, you have 1 year experience. Talk about how when you started first teaching and until the end of the teaching, you brought some significant progress. This is what I did when I was doing my interview. I talked about the things that I brought in to the school to my students, like how much did I help them improve. So for example, if somebody was in a like a B grade, I brought them up a little bit. Maybe I brought them up to A grade. Maybe students were not really good at writing skills. I talk about this experience. And one very good thing, a very recent interview that I attended, they asked for an example. The interviewer, they asked for an example, what did you do? And they asked for an example from that like elementary stage, like please give us an example of an elementary class that you have taken where you improved, or like you did, or you worked with those students. The candidates started speaking about their experience in higher education, which is okay. Like, okay, it's great that you have higher education experience, but it does not match because we're not asking you for higher education. And they kept on speaking about how they were doing it, and we had to stop them, and we were like, no, we are asking for elementary stage, so please look at whatever they are asking for. Okay, so it's very important to look at the requirements. If they're asking you for a specific thing, please only talk about it. Even in your CV, please only talk about your requirements. It's very important to adapt your CV every single time for every single role. Okay, this is why a lot of times you will have to change your CV a lot of times to fit into different roles. Maybe sometimes they want certain experience first. Maybe they sometimes want like maybe you have experience in teaching higher secondary, and they're only looking for primary. So you put your primary experience first. Okay, like highlight that experience, talk about how it's so important, and then highlight your other experiences, bring them on second position. So that's one thing that I noticed very recently, that when they're asking you for the questions like, okay, please tell us something about this grade, please only talk about that grade. For example, just for example, if they're asking you for grade 4 or 5 or grade 9, please only talk about that specific stage. Don't talk about like if they're asking you for primary, don't talk about higher secondary. If they're asking about higher secondary, don't talk about primary. I hope I'm very clear about this. So it's very easy. Just be clear and learn everything. Like if they're speaking about something in their job requirement, that the teacher should know the course syllabus, the teacher should be able to do this. Like the teacher should be able to adapt into multifaceted technology classrooms. You should know that. You should know what kind of screens are used. Not everywhere it's very advanced, but you know the basic uses of like how to work a laptop, what kind of platforms do we have. For example, for IGCSE, you should know, this is like the basic thing that you should know is Cambridge Go. Everybody knows Cambridge Go. Cambridge Go is a website by Cambridge University Press, the ones who publish the books. And they have you have access to all the books. And this is like the most basic knowledge that you should have. And you should ask for the, does the school provide the access? You should know this. You should talk about other situations. For example, Google Classrooms, obviously. For example, Edmodo, you should know them. There are so many different platforms now, especially using AI, that I've seen teachers using for their students. Talk about them. So that's all that I'm going to talk about on this slide. Next, pre-interview preparation. Obviously, I've talked about key responsibilities and requirements. You should know them. Then prepare your documents like CV, cover letter, portfolio. Sometimes they ask for portfolio, like show us your worksheets. It would be nice if you prepare them and like share them with your employees. In my interview, my employer, he asked me for my lesson plans, and he also asked me for my like worksheets, just like as a casual exchange, and I shared them with him immediately. Like as soon as the interview finished, I shared them with him, and he didn't ask because like it was a must for that interview. He was just because he was curious. He was like, oh, I want to see, you know, there's a specific thing that I've been working on, I just want to see that. And I was like, yeah, sure. Try to build a base with your interviewer. So yes, it would be very good if you can prepare a portfolio. I think it's very helpful, especially, you know, even when you move into a school, it's very helpful. They do ask for a portfolio, so it's very good. Then when you put your CV and your letter, when you send it to your employer, read it. okay, because they are looking at it and they're asking questions from your CV. So if you have mentioned something about like the head of these grades, or like key stage leader, or like exam reviewer, all of those things, please remember them, because they are going to ask you about it. So you should, like, whatever you put in there, make sure that you remember everything that you put in the CV, so when they question you, you can answer back. Okay. Also, it's okay if you sometimes forget, right? I will tell you how you can deal with sometimes when you forget the answer to your questions. But yes, know your documents, know what you sent, and know exactly what they're asking for. Sometimes your response, the responsibilities and requirements that they are asking for in the job can be different from your experience and your CV as well. So always make sure that you have good arguments, which basically means that you have good defense, good support. So for example, maybe you don't have experience teaching grade 5 or grade 6, let's say, and the job is for grade 5 and grade 6. So, but you have experience teaching grade 4. So just be like, this is a position. So prepare your speech on how you're going to convince them that you can do this job. Like, okay, I have enough experience with working grade 4 students, and I know exactly the kind of mindset that the students are when they're going into the next grade. So I'm completely prepared to handle them. And I know, talk a little bit about strategies, like, okay, I can use this strategy or that strategy to bring them back into like the middle school level or the like upper primary level. Like, talk about these things. It's okay if you have only grade 4 experience and they are asking for grade 5 and 6. Talk about different kinds of strategies. Bring research into it. The more you know about it, the more impressed they will be. So that's basic. Okay. Then common interview questions. Tell me about yourself. This is very, very common. Almost everybody is asked about this. Sometimes it's like, introduce yourself. Sometimes people are like, please tell us about your experience, or who are you, or any of those synonymous questions. Practice them. Try to make them brief, but also like include everything. I would say, please use AIs to help prepare your answers, okay? And try to learn them by heart, which is a very good practice. So like, maybe use ChatGPT. If you want to use other AIs, you can use them. And prepare a very like short introduction. Not too short, like 2 lines. Hi, my name is Sabrina Qureshi. I'm an English teacher. That's it. No, prepare a proper introduction. Like, usually what I do is introduce myself is like, I don't say, hi, my name is Sabrina Qureshi. No, because we have already started the interview. I introduce myself like this. Hi, you already know my name. My name is Sabrina Anwar Qureshi, but you can call me Sabrina or Miss Sabrina, something like this. So because usually that's how they call you. And they're like, okay, because some people prefer to call their name short. So if you have a shorter name, tell them that this is how you prefer to be called. Then be like, I'm an English teacher working in Saudi Arabia. But before this, I was previously working in another international school in Malaysia. Or I just finished my master's, but I also have a CELTA and a bachelor's, and I also have an education trends diploma. I have been consistently a higher secondary school teacher, and I'm very passionate about my subject. My key strengths are obviously language literature in English, and then I'll probably talk about like the grades that I've been teaching for the past 5 years are like grade 8, 9, 10, 11. I personally really enjoy learning working with higher secondary students. I have experience of working with like in co-education. I also have experience working with segregated students, and I have equally enjoyed both of them. Do you have any further questions? All right, would that be all? So just say that. Don't just full stop and then quiet. Don't be quiet. Give them something to talk about. Like, okay, do you want me to add something, or do you want me to talk about something else? Or be like, okay, is that all, or should I continue, or something like that. Then, because that usually gives them enough, and they will usually be like, oh yeah, that's enough, thank you, and then they will go to the next question. Then another question they ask is, why do you want to work here? Don't say like, oh, I'm really passionate and I saw the school and it's very good. Don't. Yes, it can be good to talk about the school. Usually it would be nice if you know about the school, that what school is it or which city is in it. So research the city a bit. This is what I did. I researched the city a little bit. I looked at the Google Maps to see everything that there is, and I went on to YouTube to see a little bit about the city and what kind of things are famous there. And then when I said, why do you want to work here? I said that the previous place or the previous school that I have been working in has given me enough experience that I think it is time for me to move on and gain more experience. And when I saw your job requirement, I thought it was a perfect position for me to apply on, because it like your school is so amazing and I saw it and it was so impressive. No, just because that comes off as like, you're being very desperate and you don't have an answer. So just talk about that in your current position, you are satisfied. Never talk bad about your current employment. Never talk how people have been unfair into your current employment, or that you are sick of it, or that you're not paid well. Don't say that you're not paid well, okay? It's not very nice and it's not polite to talk about it. So say that that wherever you are working on, it has given you enough experience that now you want to move on to a better place with more experience, okay? And then say that when you looked at their job requirement, you thought that it fell in line, or like it was perfect with what you are looking for, okay? Say it like this. Then for example, when they say what are your strengths and weaknesses, very sometimes, like in Saudi Arabia, very few people ask this question, I've noticed, but there will be people who will ask you this question, like what are your strengths or what are your weaknesses. So when you say weakness, please don't talk bad about yourself. Don't say that I don't do this well or I don't do that well, okay? Always talk about your strengths. Like, for example, for me, I'm very quick to adapt, okay? I'm multitasking, or like it is very easy for me to blend in a team. It is very easy for me to develop a rapport with my students, okay? I can say these are my strengths. Also, like I can prepare hands-on lessons. So for example, if I'm not prepared beforehand, I have the ability to prepare a lesson on the spot, okay? So these are some of my strengths. When I say my weakness, so instead of saying that, oh my god, I know I'm so bad at doing something, no, I usually say it like this, that sometimes I get too deep into my lessons, which I think sometimes would be difficult. So what I do is I try to keep it superficial. Never give them anything, just because it's a part of the question. So you just need to answer it, but you don't need to give something about yourself to them that they will pick on. So just be like, sometimes I have a hard time leaving places, so I think I need to work on that. Just give them something arbitrary, like something that's not very substantial, and try to move on. Talk more about the strengths, less about the weakness. And just be like, I'm constantly working to improve myself. I'm constantly trying to improve my lesson plans. I also think I'm trying to get up to date with the latest technology or latest classroom methods. So that's also something I'm working on. That's it. Full stop. Just move on. By the way, I think in this meeting, there's only like 4 minutes left. So if it stops, it's okay. We will, I think, join from a new link, and then we will start again from where we leave off. Anyway, then there's a question like, describe a challenge you faced and how you handle it. This is basically an example. They're asking you to give an example from your class experience, okay? And this also happened in a recent interview. This is the one where we kept asking the teacher that, please give us an example of if you have a student and he or she does not want to study, or he or she is being a little bit problematic or disturbing the peace of the class or the pace of the lesson, how will you handle it? And they started by, oh, I will try to talk to the student or something like that. Don't do that. Go back to your previous experience and say, oh yes, it reminds me of one experience that I had maybe like 2 years ago. Say something like this. Bring an experience. And I'm sure all of the teachers have had an experience with a difficult student, right? So say that, yes, around 2 years ago, I remember a student. That student was being a little bit difficult because he was a new student, or maybe like he was late that day, or maybe like he was having trouble understanding the topic, or she was being too talkative or something like that. And then I didn't stop my lesson. I just gave something students to work on. And while students were working on something, I walked to that student and I talked to him about if something was wrong. And you can make it up, like, the student said that maybe he thought the lesson was boring, or maybe like he was tired. So I just gave him a few minutes to himself, or like I asked him to go have a drink, or like freshen up, or like maybe I switched my lesson to a game that I had prepared for the end of the lesson, so that my student can engage. Maybe the student needed a few minutes to himself or herself, so I sent them out of the class for a few minutes so that they can go drink water, refresh themselves, and come back. So bring it like this, okay? Maybe a student started crying. So how will you handle that situation? Talk about it. That, okay, I asked my teaching assistant, if you have a teaching assistant, maybe you ask your supervisor for somebody to come in for a minute so that you can talk to that student for yourself. You took that student outside the class, or maybe you took them into a corner and you asked them like, yes, what do you want me to do here? What is the problem that you're facing right now? Students like this. Never say that you will send somebody out of the class out of punishment. Never say that you will like shout at them in the middle of the class, or like ask them to be quiet and that you will talk to them later after the class. No, that's not, and it's not encouraged at all anywhere. Not even just in Saudi Arabia, anywhere. It's not encouraged at all. So just talk about these things. Then another important question that is asked is, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 2 years?